everyone. It has been a hot minute since we have done a Beer with the Boys episode. We are here with Brian and Ryan from Undertaking the Podcast. He digs cemeteries. And we have John Hill joining us as well. And so this is where I just throw a random question. Actually, the question for today, one of you have posed to me, and I said, this is a good Beer with the Boys topic. So today, gentlemen, we are talking paranormal experiences at funeral homes. Ooh. And if you have had any. So it isn't, do you believe in ghosts? Paranormal just means unexplained things that have happened. So we're going to just do a little round table and share if you have had any experiences at the funeral home or with deceased that you believe are paranormal experiences.
Ryan, you got to go first with your cameras.
I think this, man, I've never had really any paranormal experiences. I do believe that, there's something obviously higher than me. I do believe that there's things that happen that cannot be explained. And there's some sort of there's something behind it. I don't know what it would be. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to answer that and sound sane. Okay. But, I think that there are things that can't be explained. I think when it comes to death, I think that also accelerates that idea of explanation or not being able to explain it. So there's always that aura, and I think the darkness to that probably helps the mind create more than what things are at times. But what I will say is this: Brian and I talk about this a lot. I got cameras up in our funeral homes, and they're blink cameras, and it's motion activated. So it's one of those things where it's not going to turn on unless it's unless there's some sort of a movement to trigger it. And there's only one place in my funeral home at Daleville that I get really any sort of movement. I actually had to take the camera down because it was almost constant, but I would get orbs on my camera that would float by. And I showed Brian these because there'd be nothing going on. It's not like it's in a dirty area where there should be wind there's nothing that should be moving around. Okay. It's a stale environment, no wind, closed area. Nothing should be moving around. And I would get orbs that would trigger that camera, would turn on, and you could see them fly off into like our garage area where the hearse and everything is. I never thought a whole lot about it until I shared it with Brian. And he goes, man, that is crazy. He goes, that's nuts. And I thought about that, and I'm like, you know what? It kind of is. I was like, how many cameras do I have throughout the funeral home? And that's the only place that this occurs. So I don't know. I mean, for me, supernatural. Here's the other thing. People talk about noises and things like that. Both our buildings were built. One was 1852 and the other one was like early 1894, 98, something like that. So they're all very, very old buildings. So there is some history there. Mm. But from a standpoint of like footsteps or someone whispering in my ear, or all of a sudden a cold air coming across the back of your neck, I've never had that. I've never had any type of personal experience. Mine's only been over camera, I guess, but it just odd, man. There was no reason for those things to be there. I don't know how to explain it and how to really go deep into it because I have no idea what they are. But I showed it to Brian. He goes, that's crazy. We use some profanity when we talk back and forth. He goes, that's crazy. He goes, that's nuts, man. That's nuts. That's happening at the funeral home. And I just didn't take the magnitude into effect there. But yeah, that's my only story is orbs. So I've never had the footsteps, never had, and people have asked me about this in the past. And I've always told them, it is the funeral home. Yeah, obviously is a revered place of death for loved ones. You got to remember these people didn't die there. Right. So I don't know that, when they talk about crime scenes and things like that, and, you always hear about ghosts as to covered bridges where a kid, fell off the bridge in 1801 or whatever. And there's a ghost that inhabits that bridge. Well, nobody actually passed away in the funeral. So, to me, I don't know, maybe that's something that just comforts my heart knowing that and gets me through a 3 a.m. embalming, you know what I mean? But I've never had anything besides the orbs.
I'm curious, John, what do you got, buddy?
I'm really not spooked out at the funeral home, to be honest with you. I've heard stories of, a cot rolling in by itself. I've heard stories of somebody that died in the funeral home. They killed themselves or something, and their spirit's still lurking around, things of that nature. And of course, who hasn't heard, man, this dead body, it sat up all by itself. I tell you one thing, it just did that. But, I've done too many, even though I'm new in this and haven't been in this as long as you all have. I've slept many a nights on the couch in the visitation room with a decedent in there with the casket up, and I slept just like a baby. And I just, there's videos out there though where it talks about paranormal stuff that's happening in morgues and at funeral homes. You can Google all that, but on my side of it, paranormal stuff, I'm not that spooked out about it at the funeral home. Now, I will tell you this: I've slept many nights in a church, and I'm more scared to sleep in a church than I am inside of a funeral home. I can tell you that. So as Ryan talked about
Really?
spirits and supernatural stuff, the church is more spookier to me than it is at a funeral home.
Right on.
I do have some stories about churches, that's for sure. So,
well, share them. What do you mean? Share me a supernatural story, buddy, from a church.
Hit us up.
As the old saying goes, some people ask, do you believe in spirits? Yeah, you believe in a Holy Spirit, and you believe in demonic spirits, things of that nature. And there was one night where I was staying in what is called a prophet's chamber, which is basically like in a mini apartment that's on the premise there of a church, and unexplainable noises, unexplainable things of that nature happening. And one preacher friend of mine was staying in a prophet's room, and he said, I kid you not, John, he said, I heard this thumping all night long. And he opened the door, and there was a bunch of hymn books that had been thrown at the door and all of that. And he swears that nobody else was in the building, yada, yada, yada. Now, could have a young person or the pastor there gotten up in the middle of the night trying to scare him to death? Probably so. But it's just stories like that you hear about that, and I guess it's the religious factor of it and thinking about, the two spirits at odds with one another and things of that nature. So I'm more leery of churches than I am with
Well, I guess I'll just jump in from here. Because of Ryan's camera system, that blink camera system, I bought one. It was I think it was Black Monday or Cyber Monday, almost a year ago now, and I was excited about these cameras because Ryan had them, and it was a good thing to have in the funeral home because we didn't have that type of security camera or much of a security system at all. So I bought these cameras, and then Ryan starts showing me these videos that he's got, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I went down a Facebook rabbit hole of like watching like all these videos that people catch on like their baby monitors videos or their Ring doorbells, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to set this up. So I literally did not set my system up for almost a year. I set the thing up maybe 2 weeks ago. I set it up hesitantly, and because not honestly, very little happens in our funeral home, like hardly anything. And I'm like, but I just don't want to test it. I didn't want to see what would happen.
You don't want to know.
Well, so I put it up, and everything was great. Everything was great until today. I was looking back at my phone, and I had a trigger. I had a motion detection it was 10 o'clock at night. I was there the hour previous. So it wasn't me. I was done home by then, but I couldn't see anything on the film. So that was weird. It was like it was triggered, and we caught video, but there was nothing on the film. But I actually lived in the funeral home for, I don't know, several years prior to, purchasing the old funeral director's home next door. And the one story that I have is I was laying in bed one night, and there's this old, I call it a French door, but it's really not a French door. It's just a door with a lot of windows. And I had a girlfriend at that time that she would come over every day after work at like 5:30, and I'd hear that door shut, and I knew she was there. Well, this night it was late at night, 11:30, 12 on bedtime, and I heard the door shut, and I heard walking down the hallway, and I thought somebody was here. And I'm snuggled up in bed. I'm everything's off, TV's off, radio's off, nothing. I hear everything. I hear footsteps up the hall, and then they stop. And I'm laying there in bed, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? So I jump up, and I have kind of this sawed-off baseball bat that I had in my one-room bachelor pad. I pick up this bat, and I start tearing through the funeral home. I'm just turning on lights, and I go through the entire funeral home. Didn't find a thing. And I'm thinking, this is weird. And I walk out in the backyard. Everything's locked up. Nothing's weird. Got the flashlight out, shining the flashlight around. I find this raccoon on this tree, and I'm like, oh man, that's a lot of noise for a little raccoon. And he's just on the tree, like right there, like 5 foot, like petting height. And I put on a glove, and he let me pet him. It's really weird. So I'm petting this raccoon, talking to the raccoon, like, hey buddy, how you doing? Why are you making all this noise? Quit, keep it down. And he's let me pet him. And I'm like, this is really stupid. As I walk away, take the glove off, go back to bed,
John's face.
lay down in bed,
John's face right now.
lay down in bed, get back in bed, and get all snuggled up, covers up. And I'm like, wait a second. That raccoon didn't shut my door or walk down my hall. And then I kind of got a little freaked out. I'm like, whoa. I completely blame this on a raccoon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Kind of a weird experience that I blamed on a random, probably ravenous animal in my backyard. And that's
what were you, hey, when you got up, what were you wearing? What were you running around the funeral home with a baseball bat? And what was the clothing?
The sawed off baseball
bat.
bat.
I've never heard of a sawed off baseball bat.
Sawed off with duct tape on the end. Like this is like prior to Negan. Yeah. It was like, I don't know, like 2004.
This
I don't know.
With the boys. So I'm wondering if what you experienced, you had a few beers maybe before this, or that's the damnedest thing. There was no alcohol involved, no extracurricular activities. Just a raccoon in my backyard and a paranormal experience.
Yeah, you're standing at like 1 a.m. petting on a tree
with your sawed-off baseball bat, probably in your white underwear. All right, belly just hanging out, probably rubbing against the tree. Probably had bark on your chest at some point. You know what I mean?
That's the
guaranteed.
Story.
That's the way it was.
If I know you,
guaranteed.
Here,
you were walking around the funeral home in your underwear with a sawed-off baseball bat, not really knowing what the hell you were doing.
Yes. Yes.
What?
I knew it. I knew it.
Baseball bat is where I just want to. I need a photo of what the heck.
Oh, it's around. I mean, like, it's great for confined spaces and for scaring off specters and spooks.
Which side is sawed off? The bat side or the handle side?
Bat side. Yeah. All handle. Just a little bit of meat. Yeah.
So it's a baton.
Yeah, it's like a
little bit of a bell.
It's
a baton. You have a baton. You don't have a baseball bat. Don't call it that. It's a baton.
I could lead a group with it. Yeah, I could flip it around.
No, like a cop baton.
I suppose so, I guess. Yeah.
You're a special kind of crazy. You know that?
I mean, that's it. That's literally it.
Special kind of crazy. No question about it.
I think you guys missed like the best part of this story. Like the story is like not the raccoon.
I think
that is the best part. You petting a raccoon on the tree.
No, it's
the best part.
It's going back to bed after the raccoon, blaming everything on the raccoon, and then laying in bed going, wait a second. A raccoon was outside.
I can literally see you lumbering through the funeral home in your underwear.
Oh, it might have been a baton.
Well, and
I can really see that in my head, and it almost like Sasquatch in the woods. You know, I would say almost Bigfoot walking in the woods. You know,
true story, man.
That's hilarious.
I think that brings up visuals, like thinking of times I've gone when I've freelanced and gone and stayed at funeral homes where the residence is in the funeral home, and you forget to do something, you have to run down to the office. And you're in your pajamas or you're in your underwear, you're doing whatever, and you just run through the building because it's empty. You don't turn on lights, you know where everything is. That would be someone's nightmare. is
Well-
is walking through a funeral home in the middle of the night. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and you got to run down and do an email, or you got to run down and check something, or you got to run to the prep room to make sure you put Kalon cream on someone's face or something. I'm not going in the prep room in my underwear, but like you're just, you're just,
You know what? You're not off base here. You're not
no,
off
but that
base
would
because-
be like a legit nightmare of someone having to be in that space at 10 o'clock at night with no lights on. When you're familiar with this space, I'm not going to turn all the lights on as I'm going through the building. You just go and you walk past somebody, a casket, you don't give it a second thought. I mean, this is not paranormal, we're off the topic, but.
Well, I think this though, for a funeral director, it's different. I mean, most of us in a lot of ways, I lived in a funeral home until I was 7. So my father, like his bedroom is his office at the funeral home. So, or his old bedroom when he was a kid. So, a lot of us grew up in that environment. And I guess from a standpoint of oddness, it didn't necessarily creep me out whatsoever, because it was ingrained into our everyday,
Yeah.
All right. So I do have one story. This is pretty much it. And it's not in my funeral home at all. So I do a bit of trade embalming, like Farmer John does there. And so I'm in another person's funeral home. Their care center, their prep room is on the 3rd floor, and it looks out over the town. It's got a window. It's got a beautiful view. It's almost very distracting. Like you got a job to do, but you want to just kind of gaze out the window. And it's the middle of the night. I don't even think I got there until like 2 a.m. And then start doing the work that I was called to do. And when I looked through, there was another room that I could see into, because I left the door open, and I would look up and this door would be open. And then I'd look up and the door would be closed. And it was just, and it was literally just that: door open, door closed. And it was enough that I noticed it. And then like, finally, like afterwards, like when I was done and I got cleaned up, I was like, I'm out of here. And I went tearing out of that funeral home. Like I'm not messing around. Something's goofy going on. But that's really about the weirdest thing that's ever like spooked me, I guess. Someone else's place doing some weird things, and it's just a door opening and closing. That's it. So that's all I got.
So I worked at a funeral home, and the owner had died. He lived upstairs, and a few weeks after his death, I had been sitting at a desk. There was a stairs to downstairs where you'd go down you met families and stuff down there. And there was a secretary, and she was going to go do something downstairs. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody come up. The light gets blacked out from the window they walk in front of, and they go back this side of me. I was like, oh, she came up and she's going to do whatever. And like 5 minutes later, she walks up. Like something came up those stairs, blocked out the light like a full something, and then went past me, but it wasn't her. And I thought it was her. So like, that's the most unexplained paranormal thing at a funeral home. One of the funeral homes I'm at now, there are so many stories. I want to set up a camera, but I kind of don't want to. Kind of like Brian, like I'm kind of scared of what I'm going to see if I set it up, because there's so many stories. Trade embalmers that come when it's evening or nighttime, say they'll leave the door open to the prep room, and constantly there's somebody that walks in front of the door, like over and over and over. It's an old house, very old house. I'm somebody who doesn't believe that the spirit comes with the deceased. I have never been with the deceased and felt like there's any presence of anything. There's just this body, like there's nothing there at the time. But stuff happens in old houses. Stuff happens. I've had so many experiences in houses I've lived in. In my one house, my daughter saw this old man and this child. I heard a child breathing next to me. I felt somebody crawl up on the bed with me, and nobody was there. Like I experienced things. So I've experienced things outside of the funeral home. So I believe that there are things that happen. I think and I'm fine with that. They're unexplained. I won't say what they are. They're just unexplained. But I don't think that spirits come with the bodies at all.
No. I do love a good mystery, but you're right. I don't think anyone comes with the body. And like, honestly, like if you have a choice, if you have a choice, you're not hanging out with us. You're not hanging out in a funeral home.
Why do you want to come watch yourself be embalmed or get put in a cardboard box to go to cremate or why do you want to be there for that?
Now, I mean, we're some great people to hang out with, but if you got a choice, you're not hanging with us.
No. So, well, we don't have any earth-shattering stories, but a few little things for you guys. So I know you love paranormal. I know you love Unexplained, but we don't have any major earth-shattering, like full body apparitions happening.
I don't condone petting raccoons.
With your sawed-off.
So random. So random.
That.
Literally what happened.
Literally went outside and put your hand on a wild animal. That's the thing.
No alcohol.
That's the thing that's galloping.
And
through the
no.
field, making all this noise.
How is there no alcohol involved?
None.
None.
None. I channeled my inner crocodile hunter. I'm like,
Ace
come in, mate.
Ace Ventura pet detective mode.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like having a pet possum or something. Are you kidding me? What are you talking? This is what I deal with. How do we even get through podcasts? I don't understand.
How have you not heard the story of the possum and the sawed-off bat?
This is the sawed-off possum. Literally, that's a shirt, Kari. If you don't have that on your store immediately, the sawed-off baseball bat. That is such a great.
I'm gonna sell them, and I'm gonna have you autograph them, Brian. Sawed-off bats.
That's hilarious.
And I'm gonna do.
I can come up with the graphic.
Those like those stuffed animals you stick your hand in that are raccoons. You're gonna have Undertaking the Podcast little raccoons that they could be therapy raccoons for the funeral home.
If I could pet a raccoon, I would have probably taken it with me, man. You dropped the ball right there.
I want you to have one that lives in your, you know how they have them and they put them down in their bib overalls and it sticks its head up and you give it a little
you go.
and it goes back down in.
John literally goes.
And that could have been your grieving pet, like at the funeral home, instead of a dog or
a therapy raccoon.
A therapy raccoon, man. You missed the boat, Brian.
I'm so glad you guys are my friends now. Like,
absolutely.
16 years ago, this could have been a thing.
Yeah, if this was our first conversation, we might not have another, but
instead of a Louisville slugger, you got the Ballard slugger, the half version of that.
You literally would have taken the raccoon home with you, is what you're telling me, John. I mean, on all honesty here, do you need another pet? There's no way. I mean, there's no way you can domesticate that thing. It's already been out in the wild, buddy. It's over with. That's
I have all these cats and stuff behind the funeral home that I take care of, and raccoons involved and groundhogs involved. So I do love pets. I love them, but
as long as they're not normal domesticated pets.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, a good water buffalo. Yeah, you can. He's a cuddler. He's a cuddler.
He goes out with his overalls.
He's a lap buffalo. That's what he is. I mean, that's what
One of my goals is one night after I get done with my job here, and then I go trade and bomb, I would love to get a cat carrier in my car and take one of the animals with me to ride with me when I go and work throughout the night. That would be awesome. Hopefully that'll happen one day.
Like a mascot?
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody that takes their dog with them. Who?
Don't know.
Somebody takes their dogs with them when they takes their dog and it sits in the prep room when they prep and it goes with them wherever they go. Oh, now I'm going to have to figure out who that is. Because I was
Tell you what, John, you're becoming a more interesting human being as we talk.
Wait, would that be called the emotional support or the embalming support animal?
There you go. That'd be great.
I don't know, but
embalming support
animal for like the carcinogenic intake of the animal. Like they don't get to wear a respirator if we do,
Nah, they're fine.
I wouldn't take them in the prep room. I tell you that. I wouldn't.
No, this animal was in the prep room because I was like, oh, poor puppy.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Oh,
well, that's different. That's special.
I'm gonna have to look that up. I can't remember who that was.
I just stole Ryan's line. That's special.
Special. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Great episode, guys. Great episode. Perfect episode.
So this was us, and then we went this way, and that's okay. But thanks for joining us. Check us out on our next Beer with the Boys episode. Gosh, that's what we're coming at.
Kari just shakes her head.
Lots of beer with the boys.
Yeah, I know. Next time I need to have more beer before we conversate, I think. So, Thank you, everybody. Bye.